Hey guys, thanks for joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk. If you're a returning listener, it's great to have you back. If you're new to the channel, really glad you joined us. Hope you like what you hear. We have husband and wife team who have started their own business. The caveat here is both of them are pharmacists. They still, I believe, hold their licenses in pharmacology. They're both doctorates in pharmacy, but they've started their own business called Taste of Wellness. And it's about holistic healing to try to get you off of prescriptions and control your own outcomes by what you eat, by how you live your life, by how you think. Super interesting couple. They've got a great story and they've got tons and tons and tons of health information to share with you guys because they want to help you be healthy. They want to help you get better. So, without further ado, let's bring them on. Sylvia and James Boblak. Let's bring them on right now. So, James and Sylvia, thank you so much for joining me on Salty Ginger Talk.
Thank you for
Thank you for
having us.
having us.
Yeah, I've been excited. I know I told you when we first talked. The work that you guys have embarked on and are doing is super interesting to me. I'm a big, big believer in what you're doing. So we want to hear all about it when we get to that point. But before we get there, we want to let the listeners know a little bit about you guys and how you got from where you started in life to where you are now. And there's interesting lessons in that journey. And then we'll spend a whole bunch of time talking about the work that you're doing now. I was thinking about it before I got on. It reminded me, talking to you guys, reminded me of, have you ever seen the movie Spies Like Us?
No.
Nope,
Are
haven't
we
seen
Yeah,
it.
spot?
you're probably too young. It's an 80s movie. I'm 54 and it's an 80s movie that starred Chevy Chase and Dan Aykroyd. And they're spies and they wind up pretending to be doctors in a group of doctors that are like working for Doctors Without Borders in Afghanistan. And there's a scene where they all introduce each other, and it's doctor, 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 doctor.
That's how we like to talk to ourselves sometimes,
Oh,
each other. We'll be like, thank you, doctor. Thank you, doctor. They're looking at us like,
Exactly.
wow, get off your high horse, but it's fine.
Exactly. But I know you didn't start off as doctors of pharmacology, so why don't you tell us a little bit about yourselves and the paths you traveled that has gotten you to where you've kind of gone out on your own away from more, let's say, more traditional, what people think of when they think of pharmacists and the work that you're doing now. So walk us through it. Tell us all about yourselves.
Okay, so maybe I'll start because mine goes back like super far till when I wanted to be in healthcare as a kid. And ultimately, I ended up as a pharmacist. But what happened before I was going into pharmacy school, I had been dealing with a lot of my own health concerns. I would say maybe starting at the age of like 16, I was having like the kind of heartburn where I couldn't sleep at night. I was like crying myself to sleep. A
Mm,
16-year-old should not be experiencing that. I had really bad eczema. I was in the bathroom every single time I ate anything. So totally messed up gut. And I had keratosis pilaris, which is like those little red bumps that are all over arms or face. A lot of people have them. And what I had essentially been told by doctors about the skin condition is that I'm never going to come out of it. I can maybe just kind of, temporarily relieve it with different creams, but it's lifelong, which is devastating for a 16-year-old to hear because it was a great source of insecurity for me. And then with the heartburn, I was just kind of directed by doctors like, okay, take some Prilosec, take some acid suppressors, all the different ones, over the counter, prescription, whatever. Um, and, stress can cause it, food can cause it, but nobody really ever gave me specifics. And as a 16-year-old, like what are you going to do with that information? Like, yeah, I'm stressed, correct, yes. And do I eat okay? Bless my Polish mother who cooked exactly the way that she grew up eating. And so her intentions were so good, but like her coming into this country, she didn't realize that the same food that she thinks she's feeding us, that she grew up on, like milk, right? The quality of our food in America is so different. So even though she was cooking the same soups her mother raised her on, the quality and the ingredients of those soups were so different because of, I mean, this is a whole nother topic, right? But the standards of our food in this country. So all those things were slowly destroying me, destroying my gut. And oh, and I had really, really bad sinus pain,
mm,
which I know is very common amongst people working in the pharmacy. Anyways, I decided to take matters into my own hands and start exploring, the nuances of diet and exercise and stress relieving techniques. And my cousin actually introduced me to Ayurveda, which I am now an Ayurvedic wellness counselor. But at that time, it was like mind blowing to me because I had finally come across something like a science that was explaining to me what kind of food I need for my body, for my situation, my imbalances. And it ultimately helped me treat all of the ailments that I expressed within, I'd say, like 6 months. And this was right before I was entering pharmacy school. So there was no better way for me to get super confused and super anxious of like, wait, but the medications never helped me. What helped me was diet, lifestyle, stress relief. That's what helped me. And I was so scared to change, my direction and go into like naturopathic doctor or something like that. So I continued on with pharmacy, and it was one of the most stressful experiences of my life because the entire time I disagreed with everything that was being taught to me. And I was really unsatisfied with learning about these drugs and never talking about like healing. Like I wanted to heal. I wanted to hear about people coming off the medications and being better and not needing them anymore. That to me was the end goal. I was never hearing about that. And so, I came out of pharmacy school, went into community pharmacy, and kind of knew always that I need to go do something different. I need to find my way into holistically treating patients where I can get them out of their disease states, because working as a pharmacist was never happening. And so that's how I ended up going into Ayurveda. I wanted to share with the world what I had learned to heal myself. And during that time, as I was going through that Ayurvedic training, I actually ended up transitioning from Walgreens to Walmart into his store, where he was the manager pharmacist and I was his staff pharmacist. So that's how we met. And yeah.
Yep. And then for myself, my sister's actually a pharmacist as well. So she
Holy
actually
cow. You guys don't
yeah.
mess around, huh?
Family affair.
So she actually got me my first job as a pharmacy technician back when I was 18. And so yeah, so I was around pharmacy for a long time. I mean, overall 25 years. And so I got into it, and for me, over the years, I worked at the same pharmacy as manager for 14 years. And during that time, like you really get to become friends with your patients. They weren't just patients anymore, they were my friends. We talked about everything. And so it really gave me an insight into everybody's lives, and their health life as well. And what I've seen basically is that people never got better. Everybody always started on a medication, and they always added more medications and more and more and more. Nobody ever got off anything. Um, and yeah, maybe I won't get into all the details, but even the pharmacy itself and the working for a corporation, you start to see that the push isn't for maybe directly helping patients, but the push was to make ourselves as profitable as possible.
Yeah.
And that doesn't just didn't rub me the right way. It was very clear that we're not doing what's best for patients. And actually, one of my technicians that went into health administration, he said that the first thing he was taught when going through that in college was that the main thing you need to know is that healthcare is first and foremost a business. It
Mm.
is not to help patients, that it is a business. So if you're going to work in administration, that is the key to know that. So with all that being said, I started, I started a path of more natural health. Everything kind of accelerated when I met Sylvia. So eventually when we moved in together, my diet completely changed. So I actually myself, I had borderline high blood pressure. I was always around like 140 over 90. Um, and then after about 6 months of not, I was single living alone. I ate out a lot. And the only thing I changed in my life, changed nothing else, was just my diet. It's the only thing that changed. And in 6 months of eating mostly home cooked food, my blood pressure went down 20 points, like around 120 over 70,
Mm.
and stayed there after that. So seeing that was like, wow, this is really powerful. Like this really does make a huge difference. And and most people, or I would say it's very common, somebody would just take a blood pressure medication, and then that's going to affect so many other things in your life as well. Then you might have another medication one day, and then just leads down a slippery slope there. But so eventually we actually we very much were in agreement that your gut is where most of your health starts. Like your immune system, most of it is going to be your gut is going to be controlling that. And so we actually developed a probiotic based off what we have seen in the pharmacy were the most beneficial strains. And so we started with that, but our goal was to get into education. So then we did create our educational branch, which is a teaspoon of wisdom. And so that's what we're doing right now. And we started with a pregnancy course because we have a son now. He's 2.5 years old. And going through that pregnancy process as our first child, we saw that there was so much going on during pregnancy as far as like we call them landmines, but they're like so many interventions that you get pushed onto you. And all of them have a lot of cons that they don't very clearly state. And so we thought the best place to start for us education wise was where life would start, which is, right there in the womb. So we developed a pregnancy course. And during that time, we also saw some crazy anomalies with iron. So we kind of branched off and made a side course that was just specifically about iron, but not just iron in pregnancy, but iron for the entire population, because supposedly 75 to 100 million Americans are deficient in iron, and over 2 billion in the world are deficient in iron. And none of it made sense based on the fact that we're eating way more iron than ever in human history. And so education needed to go there. So we just decided to make that course as well. And we're currently working on a fertility course now.
Wow. So yeah, I already have lots of questions just on your background, and we will definitely pivot and talk a lot about the work that you're doing now. But you touched on a couple of things that are hot buttons for me. So the profit over patience is a big one. It's funny because I injured my knee yesterday and had to go in and get checked. And so I have an MRI schedule because they're still trying to figure out what's wrong with it. But like I'm on crutches right now. And so I go hobbling in to the urgent care clinic so I can get an x-ray. And I have 5 screws in this knee from an injury long ago, and I've never had a problem with it since. But I walked in, there was a very unpleasant, unfriendly person at the counter. And literally the first thing they said to me without looking up at me was, you need to fill out that form. So I get the form, and I've already done all the work online because I've been, I'm 54 and I've been around enough to know that if I get most of it done before I get there, it's going to make it easier when I do get there.
Yeah, yeah.
So I did all my pre-work, but I still had to fill out this form. And then she says, I need to put a credit card. We need to do a $200 charge on a credit card before someone sees you. And I'm like, whatever. I'm fortunate that I'm in a position that like, okay, I can do that. No big deal. But I turned to my wife when we sat down and I said, so we run grocery stores. Can you imagine if I put someone at the front of a grocery store that said, hey, you need to tell us exactly what you're going to buy before you go in. Don't touch that cart. Tell me what you're going to buy and how you're going to pay me when you do pick it up. Can you imagine if that was how we provided customer service in the fucking grocery business? Can you imagine?
Right.
But
Yeah,
we do it all like
in healthcare.
we just accept that in the healthcare business. It's wild.
We've been
Agreed.
conditioned, it seems like, to accept that as normal,
Yes. Yes, totally. So it's in the profit thing. I've run grocery stores that have had pharmacies in them, and I'm only qualified to do the business part of it. So like what were the sales and that stuff. I actually had a woman that came and got me, and she said, your pharmacist won't fill my prescription. I'm like, well, that seems kind of odd. And so I went back, and his name was Matt. I went back and talked to the pharmacist, and he said, yeah, I can't fill a prescription because she's on a different prescription, and the two medicines will not interact well with each other. So it's 9 o'clock at night. I can't fill this prescription until I talk to a doctor. And I'm like, okay, got it. Makes sense to me. And she's like, well, you need to tell him to fill my prescription. I said, there's not a chance in hell I'm going to tell him to fill that prescription, lady, because
Oh,
he's the one that's educated on this. He's trying to keep you alive. This is not bad. This is good customer service, not bad customer service. Here's my name in case you need to report me with him. But no, we're not filling that prescription until Matt signs off on it. That's how this whole thing works.
you are such a beautiful soul, and I just want to say thank you because I have been in a position as a pharmacist where the people in charge of me and what I should do and telling me to fill prescriptions for opioid medications out of all things, right? When I'm clearly seeing there's a really bad thing happening, right? And I'm saying no, I have been pushed by managers that have nothing to do with pharmacy, right? No health background whatsoever, and they are pushing me to do it for customer service. I mean, that is the most infuriating feeling, right? That we don't have each other's backs, right? Like as two people from the same company, because ultimately that would probably benefit the company best is to have a uniform way of, right, like functioning. So thank you for that.
Sure. Well, I mean, I know the guy too. Like he was good with customers. It
Yeah,
wasn't because I got it. There's some people. Look, I've had problems with customer service. That's how you learn it. You screw it up, and then you
yeah,
try to make it right. Sometimes you get to, sometimes you don't. But
yeah.
I'm excellent at customer service now. But that comes from a lot of screwing up customer service when I was a lot younger.
You learn, right?
But I knew Matt, and I know that like he's just not the kind of guy that's going to snap at a customer. He was very measured and very good with customers. So fine, maybe he had a bad day. I don't know. Let me go find out what's going on. But as soon as he said it was something to do with the two medications interacting with each other, I'm like, yeah, this is way out of my league. And
Yeah.
I'm certainly not going to insert myself here, have this woman go pass out and get in a car accident on the way home. Because I
Right.
like Matt knows what he's talking about and I don't. This is how this works. So yeah, it's wild the way that works. Um, so Sylvia, on the you had talked to, I know we'll talk more about this as we go along, but you had talked about your Polish mother cooking the food she cooked and not understanding there's a difference between the quality of food here in the United States and the quality of food in other places around the world. In this case, Poland, I'm assuming. But um, we love to think that because we have these agencies with acronyms, the FDA and the USDA, that there's someone that's looking out for our best interests, and we have the highest quality foods that exist in the world because we have the biggest military and we've got the biggest checkbook. Talk a little bit about what you found when you started digging into that a little bit and what sent you down that path, which led you to where you are now. But talk a little bit about that if you wouldn't mind, because I don't think most people understand that what we consider great and healthy food isn't necessarily great and healthy food.
Well, something just really like simple, like Lunchables. Okay. I'm gonna start really basic. And I'm sure that more and more people are like getting by the fact that like Lunchables are not the thing for your kids, but there's still a lot of people that think that they're fine. And so to my mom's defense, she gave me Lunchables all the time. Thank you, Mom, because I love them. They're my favorite. It was great. But, in her mind, when like later in life, when I was having discussions with her about like food and not blaming her in any way, but just kind of trying to explain to her how these health issues arose for me despite our home cooked meals or despite, what she thought she was doing well. I mentioned to her, for example, Lunchables, and she's like, it's crackers and ham and cheese. Like, how bad can that be for you? And I'm like, okay, I understand because when you grew up, you were getting high quality like lunch meat where you literally stood in line and the guy that was selling it to you had literally killed his own pig or cow or whatever, and they made the meat and they sold it to you, and there was nothing extra added, right?
Yep.
And it wasn't prepackaged, certainly, right? Cheese also most likely was homemade, came from raw dairy straight from a cow in somebody's backyard. So I get it. But we just recently actually stopped to look at the back of a Lunchable, and it's like caramel color, like, I mean, all these chemicals, right? Preservatives, all this crap that doesn't need to be in there. So it's not just ham. You're not just giving a kid pork and like just wheat crackers and just like, just pure dairy. You're giving them a crap ton of chemicals to preserve that Lunchable. And it becomes more chemicals than actual real digestible organic material that our body can actually use for fuel. So instead, we're just bogging down our system with these chemicals. So that was a really big deal. And I really kind of started understanding that when I came across Ayurveda, because in the Ayurvedic science, The biggest principle is digestion, and the fundamental concept is that you must eat organic material, like, because we are organic creatures, we're natural creatures, and the only kind of fuel that we are able to recognize, metabolize, and transform into usable fuel is other organic material. So when we start consuming lab-made chemicals, we are confused. Our bodies go into mayhem. And that's how, that's a really great starting point for disease at some point down the line, depending on your predisposition. So that was the first time that I looked at that, because I remember when I first started down my path, I was kind of like, I remember I was eating goldfish and I was wondering why I was having heartburn still. Or like I was in college and I was eating I chose to, instead of eating a pizza, I ate a sandwich. And I was like, why am I still having heartburn? Like, I just chose a sandwich over pizza. But what was the quality of those ingredients, right?
Mm.
And I can only imagine now, and that's what I kind of learned later with Ayurveda, is that you have to look at the ingredients. The ingredients are key, and we have a lot of ingredients that our bodies can't handle.
Yeah, I'd be curious to get your take on this, but the way I try to explain it to people, and look, I am not perfect. I have had and still do sometimes have fast food and junk food, and
That's
so
true.
I'm not on an
Yeah.
ivory tower here looking down at people. Let's just be clear
No.
about that. None of
Yeah.
this is judgment, it's education.
No, it's good to get that out there. Yeah. Like, we're
Yeah.
all human and we should indulge.
Yeah, that's right.
Mhm.
But the way I explain it to people is the majority of stuff that you consume, you want it to have gone through the least amount of processing possible.
Exactly.
Like you should have been able to, whatever, like if you're a hunter, killed it yourself or picked it up or removed it from nature, washed it, and then ate it. Like if you think about it like that, you're going to wind up in a pretty good spot. If you do that 80% of the time, you're going to wind up in a really good spot,
Mhm.
you know?
Absolutely.
Yes, I like that you actually added that, because I mentioned the ingredients, but ultimately you don't want to be eating all your stuff from packages, but looking at the ingredients and being like, okay, this is pretty pure. Like, you definitely don't want that. So you're right. The closest it is to its natural source is ideal, right? Yeah.
And you can do that most of the time. Like, to your point, if you get like in our stores, so I run grocery stores and we have a butcher in our store. So we cut fresh beef and fresh pork every day. The chicken isn't cut fresh, but like if you can get something somebody took a knife to that day, not much process going on there other than the knife cutting it into whatever retail cut that it is. And then you've got all sorts of produce options to pair with that.
Mhm.
And even if you like got it, like I'm a full component of the right mix of fats, carbohydrates, and proteins. So on your carbohydrates, like rice, right? But which rice? Like don't do minute rice. Like like most people think brown rice is better for you. Not necessarily true.
Preach, brother,
Um,
preach. I like this. Yes.
yeah, right. I mean, what is the unprocessed, unbleached rice that you can so like it's going to take you a while to cook it. Sorry, that's how rice works. But you literally throw it in a pot of water and come back a couple hours later and you got rice for weeks if you throw it in a big pot. So um, I
Yeah.
just have heard it said before, and I'm such a proponent of it, that the least prescribed medicine in the world is exercise and the most abused substance in the world is food.
Ooh, I love
And
that.
it hit me as soon as I heard it. I'm like, and I'm guilty of that too, by the way. I'll sit on my ass and eat ice cream and watch Netflix instead of working out and
That's great.
I know I'm supposed to do. But like when you think about it that way, like it's that basic. And I think we make it way more complicated than it needs to be. But that leads me, James, back to you, which you had talked. I'd love to hear you talk a little bit more detail about this because in a management position in a corporation, and like it's a good thing your sister wasn't a bank robber, right? Because you'd have been in the
I'd be a
she
bank
goes,
robber right now. We have some interesting stories to be talking about bank robberies right now.
totally, but kudos to your sister for walking the straight and narrow. Good for her. But so you got to see, like, I'm assuming you went into that because you like helping people. Like that's why most people get into jobs like teaching and healthcare and other service industries. And then you get in and you're like, well, fuck, this isn't all it's cracked up to be, huh? So talk a little bit about some of the things you saw that really kind of tweaked you, and then you were fortunate that you had, your lovely wife come into the picture at just the right time after you'd gotten a little bit disillusioned, and you guys then that'll take us down the path to what you guys are doing now. So,
Okay, yeah. Well, probably the most glaring one is vaccines. Once they started having pharmacists give vaccines, wow, did that just change our business? Because A, vaccines are very, very profitable,
mm,
and you get to charge an administration fee. So like we get to bill the insurance for just administering it. So like every time, and I think during COVID, for example, I believe, and I don't know, I can't remember 100%, but I believe it was we got $40 for every shot we administered. So, and that's just that's just pure profit. That's not counting any product, anything. This is just pure profit of administering a
yeah.
vaccine. And so you could imagine a a a company will want you to do as many as you can because this is not costing them anything to do. So there was just a lot of wildness. So what happened was we started doing vaccines, and then all of a sudden we had to hit certain quotas for vaccines. And then what happened was when we couldn't hit them, the stores that couldn't hit them now had to be on conference calls on Saturday mornings. And so like it was every week. For that week, you don't hit your quotas, you have to be on this call Saturday morning. And then they got annoyed by people who just going on there, not doing enough and just sitting there. So now you have to present on those calls as well. It was just like they're doing everything to annoy the crap out of you as much as you can to try to push you to hit these quotas. And then we started getting emails, and then every single day emails to update to show you how you compare to each store in your market. Now it's like boom, boom, boom. Every day you're getting a comparison. Um, and then if you don't hit enough, how come you get questions? How come you didn't hit your goal? How come you don't have any? It was just constant, nonstop. And
Mm.
and man, and then there was a lot of other things that happened to it. They put us on. I remember one time they put us on a call with a drug rep to teach us how to speak to your patients on how to get more shots for HPV. I remember. So
Can we just also put out there that those are salesmen? Usually these are not people that have like a pharmacy degree or any.
No, Sylvia, you hit the nail right on the head. That's wild to me. So, hey, I know you went to 8 years of school to do what you do, but this chick looks good in a skirt, or this guy's a smooth talker. So, why don't you listen to them about
Yeah,
your
they're trying to
profession?
brainwash us, like, and make us forget what we know.
Yep.
yeah, so they put us on a call, and then the drug rep is saying, you when they come up to the window, and you want to ask them, have you had your cancer preventing vaccine?
Jesus.
That's how they want us to ask them. And it's just like, whoa, you're
Fear
right, you're
tactics.
right away putting fear into this person. But whoa, what do you mean? What cancer preventing vaccine, And it's very misleading when you really dig into these vaccines. But like it was very misleading, but that's how they want you to do it. They want you to make sure you scare people into it. And just another funny example, but it was during the COVID time. There was a patient that they had a new booster, and this patient is asking me like, well, what do you think? What do you think? And I'm like, well, no, don't get it. I wouldn't get it. And she asked her doctor, and first the doctor told her you should get this booster, and then she's like, well, would you get it? And he's like, no. He just told her to get it, and he wouldn't get it himself, but he told her to get it. This is like, oh my God. And it just like, it's just too many scenarios. I mean, like just everything that we push. I mean, some people will maybe look at the adherence, for example. So adherence is somebody taking their medication every day.
Mm.
And some people will look at it, and so some people will look at it like, well, yeah, that's the best thing for everybody. Like you must take your medicine every day. Like, I mean, like for me, I'm feeling like the reason we want that is to make sure they keep picking up their medicine every 30 days.
Right.
And I mean, what turned out, we started to have to do so many phone calls on so many different drugs to call people like, hey, basically, like, I felt like kind of like an annoying like parent almost, like, hey, like scolding them for not taking their medicine every day because we're tracking that like, oh, 32 days have gone by. You should have filled this medicine that you picked up 30 days worth, you know? And like we're constantly calling people. It's just the most awkward phone calls too. Absolutely hated it because it's just like I literally feel like I'm scolding them, like oh yeah, well I forgot. Sometimes I miss it. It's like yeah, well you know it's important to take it. That like at least that's the scripts they give you to make sure.
Oh yeah,
They give you scripts to like oh make sure you tell them that it's important for this and this and and it was literally a lot of calls every single day. It wasn't like something you do monthly. This was every single day. You get a long list of all these people with these certain specific kind of maintenance medications, and yeah, it was just a lot of things added up to where it just wasn't feeling like I was here to help people. I'm literally here just to bring business in.
Yeah, and that was I was going to say the common thread in everything you just said is not once was patient care or outcome discussed. Do this so we can make more money. Do this so we can make more money. Do this so we can make more money. And it's I'm fortunate I'm in a business, but even like us, in our like people need to eat, and I'm glad like I take that responsibility very seriously. I want to have healthy, nutritious foods for people to buy. But, like our top 10 items, 5 of them are soda or chips,
Mhm.
you know? And so it's like I can't not offer those things because I'm not Whole Foods and blah, blah, blah. But um yeah, I have mixed like they're talking about revising the SNAP program so that you can only buy, what's considered a healthy food. Now, who's deciding what's healthy and what's not? That's another conversation. But I think we can all agree that Pepsi is probably not the healthiest thing in the world for you, or Lay's potato chips. And look, I got nothing against Pepsi or Lay's potato chips, but let's just be honest about what they are. And so like that won't be great for my business, but as a human being, I think, yeah, that's a good thing. Like if we're keeping people alive by giving them funds to purchase food, yeah, I think we should say, yeah, you can buy this, but not this. The other flip side to that too is there's a lot of things that don't qualify for SNAP that I personally think should, like
Yes.
feminine hygiene products. Like
Mhm.
if there's lots of young women out there that can't afford feminine hygiene product. That's a real health issue for them. Why would we not cover that? You can buy Pepsi, but you can't buy Tampax. Like that doesn't make any sense to me
Exactly.
whatsoever. So I see a lot of the things you're talking about just from a different lens
Mhm.
from what I do. But so you guys, so Sylvia goes through her whole process and realizes, hey, if I eat better, a lot of this stuff goes away. And you go through a lot of formal training with that, but you're also on that parallel track of going through pharmacy school. James a little ahead of you, so he's out in the cold hard world and experiencing kind of the corporate grind as it relates to that.
And dying every day slowly.
Totally.
No pressure. Yeah.
Totally. I totally get it. You guys wind up working in the same place and hit it off, which is awesome.
Mhm.
And so now talk a little bit about how did that develop as you worked together and got to know each other and Sylvia start sharing all the things she learned about nutrition and preventative, call it preventative associations or a healing way to manage this stuff. Talk us through how you went from where you were to deciding to go out on your own. And then I want to spend a lot of time talking about the business that you're operating now.
So, well, initially, I mean, I guess we could say I asked him out. I guess now is what it ended up being. But I was in my like last stage of my program, and I needed to have students, or not students. I had to have like practice patients, to do like a
for,
consultations on.
for Ayurveda.
Ayurveda,
Mm.
my Ayurvedic program. Yeah. So I was like, oh, he seems really open-minded. And like throughout working with him, he had been really open-minded. And I realized that I was like really defensive in all these situations. But like when I would bring like a smoothie in, usually people would be like, what is that shit that you're drinking? Because it'd be like brown, whatever. But like, you
Mhm.
know, like, and they would like make fun of me for all my like healthy snacks. And then he would be like, what is that? And I'd be like, nothing, shit. But like he was actually caring. Like he wanted to know what it was and he wanted to learn. And like, you know, I came in already like loving probiotics. I even in school when they taught us like this was actually when it was really taboo to use probiotics because there was all these dangers associated with them, which is crazy. I came in just like loving them, and I was like dishing them out to every patient, just being like, "You need probiotics. Let's fix you probiotics." And so he was really curious to learn more about that. So he was really curious, which was really really cool. And I think that's the first step is to always stay curious and to ask questions. And he couldn't have made it to where he is now if he wasn't curious. But yeah, I mean that's essentially how it happened. Like he was my little practice patient, and then I explained to him what Ayurveda was. Um, yeah, and you kind of were sold on it. And the fact that yeah, diet and lifestyle is the best medicine. It's the foundation. I always say that I want to see an eventual line that's blurred between the line that's between medical advice and diet and lifestyle advice. I want that line to be blurred
Mm,
because it's the same thing. High quality medical advice comes with the foundation being diet and lifestyle. You can't have high quality medical advice without that, without the building blocks of health, right? So
sure. Well, yeah, and James, you're no dummy, right? So you got this smart, good-looking chick who's like willing to spend all this time and teach you all this stuff. You're not going to turn that down, right?
Of course not.
Didn't get to where you were by making bad choices.
think I just impressed him really much by all the tequila shots I was able to take with him.
Yeah, so that's awesome. So that's a win. So before we get into the business, Sylvia, talk a little bit about Ayurveda. Just like explain what it is and the kind of what you learned through that teaching and process, so that our audience has a better understanding of it.
Yeah. Okay. So let's start slow here. So, Ayurveda is a Vedic science. It goes back to thousands of years ago, about 5,000 years ago, ancient India, but is by no means directed towards the Indian culture. It is a worldly science that can very much, it needs to be implemented here more, and we can learn so much from it. But it's a Vedic science. And just to put that into perspective, one of its sister sciences is yoga. So most people are familiar with yoga. That is also a Vedic science that was brought to our Western culture about a century ago, give or take. And though most people use it as like a really great form of physical exercise, the whole basis of yoga is for connecting with your soul, for quieting your mind, grounding yourself, and feeling into your soul. And then its sister science, Ayurveda, is more so meant to address your mind and your physical health via food, lifestyle, exercise, literally anything. So Ayurveda literally means science or knowledge of life. So if you can imagine, that is, I mean, it's knowledge of life. So it's this beautiful wisdom where it literally helps you tune into yourself, know yourself best, and identify where you are at and what your personal needs are, and to be able to understand which food choices are going to be good ones for you that will keep you in balance, which will take you out of balance, right? Because at the end of the day, every choice we make throughout our days, regardless of whether it's to watch TV and sit on our butts or to go do something productive for the mind or the body, right? Just simple example, whether to eat a hot dog or whether to eat a delicious warm cooked meal. What kind of people we keep in our company? Are we living in a fear-based, from a fear-based perspective, or do we keep company and an environment that makes us happy, that keeps us light, and thriving? So every choice that we make every single day either puts us into balance or out of balance, if that makes sense.
No, it makes total sense. And um, there are some, in my mind at least, and you can correct me if you see this differently, if either of you see this differently. There are some generalities, and we've talked about them, like, less processed stuff is generally better for you.
Yes.
But every person is an individual, and you've got to figure out kind of that unique combination of lifestyle that works for you. And
Right.
that can be difficult, especially when you're like a married couple. I'm not talking about just you, but like my wife and I have been together 33 years and we need different things. One, I'm male and she's female. So like that's different in itself. And
Mhm.
then, our digestive systems work differently. Our sleep needs are different. Our thought processes are very different. And so you've got to figure out what works for you, which is, super, super tailored and super, super intimate. And if you're not going to do the work to figure that out, you're probably not going to wind up with the best possible outcome you could. At least that's the way I think about it.
Exactly. And it's actually quite silly because in our country we talk about prevention so much, right? And typically the way that's done is either via vaccines for infectious disease prevention or by doing a lot of like tests, like colonoscopies and all those different kinds of diagnostic tests to help you catch the disease early. Catching a disease early isn't preventative measures.
Mm,
Preventative measures are implementing practices into your everyday life and living a lifestyle that will actually prevent the disease from onsetting in itself, right? And so this is where we could really learn because the Ayurvedic wisdom understands, like within that culture, we understand how to live daily life to actually prevent problems and to not fall out of balance. Because that's kind of very similar to traditional Chinese medicine. I would compare it to that where it's like seeking balance, like, this kind of flow where you're always going from balance to imbalance and understanding how to navigate that through your choices. But yeah, like you said, it's so highly personal, right? And like we are still stuck in this generalization of recommendations to people in our country. And that's not just within conventional medicine. It's with also like natural recommendations for herbs and diet because like and exercise because we're always like if you read the latest article like oh this exercise is the best thing you can do to live longer like 2 weeks later oh no it's actually this one and the reality is it was never that one exercise for everybody to begin with, you know what I mean? And that's why we're always like bouncing back and forth. And for the people that don't understand their own bodies, and that's the majority of our country, they're at the whim of the latest research of like, oh, I'm going to do this, now this, now this. And at the end of the day, it's like, well, what's happening to you? Like you really don't understand what you truly need. And like I said, Ayurveda helps you hone in and understand your physical and your mental composition, you can say is the word, to be able to identify the qualities of food, exercise, living patterns that best suit you where you are at your life.
mm. Yeah, so I love that. I love too that you had talked about being curious. It was one of my biggest complaints during the whole COVID debacle, and I call it debacle because look, without getting too political on it, there was fear that was used to try to control a bunch of people in various different ways. And the thing that drove me the most nuts was trust the science. Like that is such an oxymoronic statement.
Yeah.
Like science, the point of science is literally to try to prove things wrong until you can't prove them wrong anymore.
Yeah.
And then you've got a fact. So the fact we were trying to shut down debate and shut down questions, that like I try to focus on critical thinking. And I always tell people it's too bad you didn't know me when I was 20 because I was so fucking smart when I was 20. I knew everything.
Nice.
You didn't have to ask me. I would tell. That's how smart I was. I would tell you. I knew everything. And now I'm 54 and like I'm an idiot. Like I don't know anything. There's so much knowledge out there and I don't know any of it. But I can talk to really smart people like you and learn a whole bunch of stuff from the place you're an expert if I just ask a couple of questions and shut my mouth. And we've like lost that as a society. We want people to tell us exactly what to do. Well, no one can tell you exactly what to do because they're not you.
Mhm.
And we need more people like you guys, which is will take us into your business to think critically and say, hey, like it couldn't have been easy to say, look, we spent all this time and effort and money to become pharmacists, and screw it, we're not going to be pharmacists in a traditional sense anymore. We're going to go do what we think is right and try to help as many people as we can. That's not an easy thing to do, right?
No, it's not easy. It continues not to be easy for us. We made the right choice. It's very challenging.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about that. Like there has to be people in like close to you that said, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, of course.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, leaving my job, I got a lot of questions like
Essentially,
that.
right? Because he's the man of the family. Like he could never do something like he's totally like, right? We're gonna
Yeah,
end up on the street.
I'm pretty sure my dad has asked me at least 20 times when I'm going to go back to being a pharmacist. So and still, I mean, he still asks me. I mean, he'll slip it in there like, "Hey, you going to go back to work?"
Yeah.
I am working. I am working.
Yeah, it's so funny, isn't it? Because people like they're like you had talked, Sylvia, you had talked about like not just in certain aspects, like even in society, go to college, get a degree. Look, I have a college degree. None of my sons have college degrees. I didn't. It's funny. I talked my oldest son out of going to college. He did not like school. He's very intelligent, and he is a better read of people. Like he can talk to someone for 2 minutes and say good or bad, yes or no. Like, and he's almost never wrong. The only person I've seen better than him is my wife. But in an academic environment, that's not his environment. He's not good in that environment. He reads and retains knowledge like nobody's business, but being able to call on that knowledge, regurgitate it, and present it in a way that makes sense to other people, it's not a strong suit. Crazy intelligent guy, but that what I just described is not a strong suit. So he's graduating high school and he's talking about college. I'm like, what are you talking about college? And he said, well, like I'm graduating. I'm like, so? He said, well, I'm going to go to college. I'm like, let me just, I want to understand the proposition that you're making here. You hate school. We can agree on that. It was free and you didn't even like to do the schoolwork that didn't cost you any money. So now your proposition is to do it for 4 more years, but to pay for it and be in an environment that you hate for what's this occupation that's so important that you have to get a college degree for? Is there an occupation? No, there's not. No, you should not go to college. You should go out into the world and figure out what it is you want to do with your life. But I run in circles where that's frowned upon. Like your kids all get college degrees because that's what you do when you
Mhm.
leave high school. And so I remember I was at a party one time and someone asked me, where do your kids go to school? And I said, they don't. And like it was a clutch the pearl. Oh, your kids are they're gonna be in the poorhouse. It was a clutch the pearls.
They probably came to my pharmacy for medicine after they talked to you.
Exactly. And I'm like, yeah, they're not college guys. Like they're great guys and they're hard workers and they're all really smart and they're all going to do fine, but they're not college guys. And somebody said, man, I can't believe you had the guts to say that. I said, what? Say what? That I am proud of my kids? Like they're my kids. I'm very proud of them. They got their problems like anyone else, but fucking ain't right. I'm proud of them. We raised good men. We raised 3 good men and they're out in the world doing good things. The fact they don't have a little piece of paper that says how smart they are doesn't mean a thing to me. Doesn't mean a thing.
Mhm.
And again, nothing wrong. I have a college degree. My degree's in finance and economics. I got nothing against it.
Well,
But
and I think that that says a lot. Like you went through the degree and you see that that doesn't change you. It doesn't make you. It's like if if you know like that little paper doesn't do anything. And very often, getting a college degree because the way you described your son and your wife, it sounds like they have a beautiful intuition that is very loud, and that's something that most of us have lost. All of us have it. It's just that some people know how to listen to theirs more. And what I found is very often going through that conditioning that you go through within the college system, you often lose your intuition, you lose your ability to critically think for yourself because you're so attached to this. They know better. I'm paying them all this money. It wouldn't have cost this much if they didn't know the best, and they're going to give me a degree after this, right? Like this has to be the right way. Screw what I know, right?
Yeah, and I just want to touch on college. There's some
Yeah.
interesting things going on in the health world of college as well, and that is the fact that, um, like for example, when I went to pharmacy school, I started in 2004. Um, there was 200 people that got accepted, and there was 2,000 applicants.
wow.
And now they are having trouble filling their classes. So they opened 4 more schools. They're having trouble filling the entire class, meaning that they are now letting in a lot of people, almost anybody at this point. And that's one thing. They flooded the market, the colleges. They just because they're just trying to get as many people in and make as much money as possible, I'm sure, because the prices also went up
Mm.
more than double since I've been there. So it's increased so much, and the pay for pharmacists has shrunk compared to in inflation in the world. It's shrunk a lot, and then they also started doing these dual acceptance programs. So coming out of high school, you can get into a dual acceptance program, which means that you would automatically go into pharmacy school and you don't have to take the exams to get in. So you won't even, you won't have to be compared percentage wise where you would score compared to other people applying to school. And now they've started to do this in medical school as well. So now medical school also has these dual acceptance programs, so you don't have to test in anymore. And it looks like what's happening is that this is why the college we were saying, like, you don't need a paper, because the paper doesn't mean crap anymore, because you could be a complete idiot and still get into these programs now. And it's kind of scary because now it's just very underqualified healthcare professionals coming out now as well. So it's just kind of a scary world in college. And I like to compare sometimes knowledge of math and healthcare. We like to talk about that healthcare because a lot of healthcare professionals, they know like what they studied, but they don't understand the why behind it. So if you
Yep.
can't understand the physiology behind why things are happening a certain way, you're never going to understand on what the right treatment for an individual is. You just could only recite what the whatever the FDA or what a CDC says, or whatever or American Diabetes Associated, whatever their like procedures are, like you could only recite these for what the treatments are and everything like that, but you don't understand how to heal an individual because you don't understand the actual physiology behind it. I always compare it to math because, like, in math, um, if you're taking a test and like you if you don't understand the math, like you could memorize a bunch of equations and you might score okay on a test, but the second that they threw a different variable in there, you have no clue how to solve the problem because you don't understand the underlying reasons for that math problem. And it's the exact same in healthcare. If you don't understand the reason for why you're doing any sort of treatment or what's actually going on in somebody's body, once you have other different variables thrown in there, because everybody is unique. Everything that presents to you is going to be slightly different than the next person. And so you are not going to know how to actually help an individual. You could only recite, and that's literally what's happening in most of healthcare. You could just recite what's being told, what needs to happen for treatments across the entire board of everybody.
Yeah. It's impossible for me to agree more with what you just said. My two favorite statements that I try to use to snap people out of this blind devotion to authority figures. We hear doctor and we hear lawyer and we think, oh, well, they must know everything. I must listen to everything they tell me. But here's my two arguments against that. If they know everything, if doctors and lawyers know everything, why do they call their business a practice? Why isn't it called, right? It's practice. Think about it. It's a practice. Think about that. And you know what you call the person that graduates last in their class at medical school? You call them doctor.
Mhm.
So, like, I got nothing against doctors and lawyers, and I don't think I'm smarter than anyone. However, I don't think they're smarter than me either.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and so I've got eyes. I can't remember if I told you about my oldest son contracted diabetes late in life. He was in his late 20s,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we didn't know it. And he wound up in what's it called? The acidosis. He
Yeah,
almost
acidosis.
died.
Yeah.
He was on
Mhm.
life support for a couple of days.
Wow.
And so we didn't know what his problem was. He had kind of this slow decline as the sugar levels in his blood rose. And then like once it got to a point, then it got really bad. And we took him into the emergency room. And his blood sugar levels were over 700 when we took him into the emergency room. And so I only know all of this now because I now have a son with diabetes. I didn't know any of this when this was going on. And I had told him to toughen up the week before. He's my toughest kid. I should have known something was wrong. So I read it wrong and like I should have done something different, but I didn't up until right now. And so, I I know about diabetes and I know what the cure is because I work with a couple people with diabetes. They need insulin, right? And so his potassium was really low as well. And so, but like, there's no way to describe how quickly his health was deteriorating as I was standing there watching it. And so the doctor said, we're trying to give him potassium. So they gave him I think they gave him pills, if I remember right, a couple potassium pills.
Mhm.
Didn't move the needle at all on his blood. And so I said, what's next? And they said, we're going to give him more potassium pills. I'm like, no. And they're like, well, why not? I'm like, we just did that. It didn't work. Try something different. I said, when's he getting insulin? And he said, do you want your son to have a heart attack? I said, that's a stupid fucking question. Of course I don't want him to have a heart attack. However, I'm not going to sit here and watch him die because he doesn't get insulin. So I'll ask you again, when's he getting insulin? And he walked me through the interplay, and I don't need to explain it to you because you know it, but the interplay between potassium and insulin and the effect it has on your heart. And I said, we're past the point of having the luxury of being safe. Look at him. Can you not look at him? Look at him. So they transferred him. There was another doctor that came in and did the same rigmarole. They finally got the head of cardiology in there, and he said, we need to give him insulin right now, and you need to put potassium, liquid potassium, in through his jugular vein. And all the doctor said, you could give him a heart attack. He said, you're right, but he said, we have to take some risks. We're past the point that we can be safe. And if that guy hadn't walked in the room, I don't know what would have happened. But I was arguing, I sell groceries. I don't know a fucking thing about diabetes other than what I Googled.
That's a scary place to be at the mercy of a bunch of people saying what he should or shouldn't be doing, and you have an intuition that's saying like, he's got to do, you've got to give him this, you got to find a way to give him this, which is great that you have that. A lot of people will just okay, whatever.
Well, that's
Yeah.
right? Like you were saying.
Yeah, their solution was to try to scare me into listening to him. That was their solution.
Yeah.
Not to explain it, not to problem solve, but hey, this guy's pushing back. We can't have this.
Yeah.
It's
There's
wild.
so much of that intimidation that they do. Jim, you have a lot of stories with that. My mom had, I mean, it was just ridiculous because like my mom had a little bit of higher cholesterol levels and she was offered a statin. And she said, no, I'd like to go change my diet because I know I'm not eating well right now or you're stressed, whatever, right? And the doctor's first reply was, do you want to be alive to see your daughter get married? I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Over a cholesterol medication out of all things, as if that was like a life-saving, thing for her, like to take right now. And she couldn't make those changes. I mean, that fear tactic is just so disappointing.
Yeah, for sure. And so we've all shared our horror stories of things that we've seen wrong. It's easy to sit and say, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. I really respect the fact that you guys looked at it and said, hey, we got to do something different. We're going to start up this business, go out on our own and try to teach this to people and heal people. I know you said you started with a pregnancy course, but kind of walk us through how you guys started Teaspoon of Wisdom and kind of what track you see it on and what you're trying to accomplish through your business.
Yeah, so it's interesting actually because when I first started doing Ayurvedic consultations, I started a Teaspoon of Wisdom for that. And then I kind of put it to sleep for a little bit when we started working on a probiotic. And then when we decided to go back into education, we kind of revived that name and it's become now our education sector. But yeah, pregnancy has been such an important one for us to cover. Just because during the course of our pregnancy, we're just so flabbergasted by how many things could go wrong. We were in such a favorable spot of understanding healthcare and understanding all the potential dangers of all the recommendations. And most families don't have the luxury of that. Most of them are at the mercy of what the doctor recommends. And right now it is not in the favor of mothers and children. We're seeing worse child outcomes than we've ever seen before, developmentally, physically, in all facets. And mothers are suffering as well. They're having really, really traumatic pregnancy experiences and birthing experiences, and we can do better for our women and our children. And just bringing life into this world, because without that, we have nothing. We don't exist, So yeah, so we did that. And then as we were diving into the nutrition, so our biggest, I would say our biggest point always is that we urge people to go to nature, to get their nutrition, their nourishment, stay as close to nature as possible. And so when it comes to the nutrition aspect of, for example, the course that we developed, we were trying to, because like I had not taken a prenatal vitamin my entire pregnancy. We strongly believe, and the evidence is out there, that getting your vitamins and all of your nutrition from food is a superior way to nourish yourself and your growing baby. And vitamins will never be able to replicate that, because either they are synthetic vitamins, and even if they are like whole food vitamins, which seems to be more and more common these days, it's still not the same proportions as you would find in your food. And the beauty and the like crazy intelligence of our food that we still don't know how to replicate and can't even wrap our minds around in food science is how all these different vitamins, minerals, everything like kind of like have this beautiful dance and how they work with our bodies. And so we were on this like journey to kind of demonstrate to women, how it is that they can get everything naturally. And then we went through iron, because everything can be obtained just fine. Like per recommendations, we were trying to kind of stick to like what the recommendations are, since that's what people are comfortable with. And everything was smooth sailing until we hit iron. And we're like, there is literally no way that you can get the recommended amount of iron through food. And that was a red flag to us, because we're like, wait, then how have women been, nurturing pregnancies for thousands of years before iron supplements? Like something isn't right here. And then Iron Man was born. Went on like the deepest dive.
Oh, geez. Well, so yeah, in general, though, like our path was, our initial idea before I jump into the iron was that we wanted to start with pregnancy, we wanted to go to fertility, and we also wanted to go into like babies, like newborns and toddlers, like education there as well. We also thought would be really important. But we are also open to, like, if something needs education that we find critical at the time, like we're going to jump into it as well. So so that is our path, but we are open to shifting to something else if it's needed. And
it was so interesting, because as we were stumbling across this realization, we are amidst right now like a hysteria of people don't have enough iron. Everyone is anemic, and it's all iron deficiency anemia. Like we are amidst a hysteria of that. And so it's just funny how the timing was perfect. So we had to like sidetrack and do this stuff.
Yeah, so the iron came because, yes, we are looking at pregnancy, and they recommend 27 milligrams of iron, and none of it made sense. You couldn't get 27 milligrams of iron if you were eating. If you were trying, it would be you'd have to be eating animal livers every single day. Like there's
27 milligrams daily. That was the recommendation.
That's
what's in prenatal vitamins that the women are directed to take.
That's the current recommendation. Yeah. So the prenatals all have pretty much 27 to 29 milligrams in there. And so that like just made no sense. Like, how is this even possible? Like, yeah, in human history, nobody could have even. I mean, they literally would have to lived in the most wildest times where just animal livers were everywhere for everybody all the time. I don't know.
Just livers all day.
Yes. And none of that made sense. And obviously, there have been like vegetarian cultures in history, and they would get nothing near that amount. Like, how would they survive even? Like, it just made no sense. And then when I dug into it, just the light bulb came on, like, oh my God, like the iron thing is not just for pregnant women, but just everybody in general, like what has happened, like the history of when they started putting it in food back in the 40s to still continuing it now, and just how different that iron is. And I don't know if do you want me to get into this now, or are we saving this for a later time of this thing?
No, let's do it. We're here. Let's do it.
Okay. I mean,
yeah.
He warned you.
I warned you. All right.
That's why you're here. No, I've been looking forward to this.
Okay, so in general, so iron, they started putting food into iron in iron into food. Oh my God, food into iron. Yeah. Iron into food in 1941. So this happened during World War II. And a lot of the reasons were that it's possible during this wartime, whole foods may not be available to people, so we're going to put them in foods. But it was meant for just this time. So it was iron and B vitamins. They started doing it at that time.
And I just want to be real clear, Doc. We're talking about iron, Fe on the periodic table, the element, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. So um, different versions of the iron is put into food. I'll get into that in a minute, but they were putting in iron because you know what, they're going to have more packaged foods and food might be harder to access during wartime. And you know, manufacturers of all types are used during war, and so like that was the reasoning. I know like even one of the people on the board that approved at the time, they knew it was meant for just that time. They were upset that after wartime ended, all of a sudden packaged and processed goods just accelerated, and they kept this practice of adding all these synthetic vitamins and iron into foods, and it still remains today. So like 90 to 95% of the flour we consume in the US has synthetic iron added to it. And if you look at like cereals have a crazy amount of iron. Cereal, bread, crackers, ice creams have we saw like reduced iron in ice creams and
Everything.
formulas have a crazy amount of iron in there. Kids' foods have so much iron in there. And so like a lot of people are gonna be like, well, yeah, people are deficient in iron. That's good for them. And what they don't tell you though is how different that iron is from the ones you get from plants and animals. Just extremely, extremely different. So for starters, the iron that if somebody asked if or let me just ask you, if what's the first thing that pops to your mind if I asked you where do you think that iron comes from that they put in the food?
The ground would be my guess.
Yeah, well, that is kind of a good start. But what's happening is so ferrous sulfate, that's one of the forms. That's the most common form that would be in food and supplements. Ferrous sulfate, so that stands for like salt, like a sulfate group binded to an Fe and iron. So ferrous sulfate, hence the name. So that is the iron that's put in, and that per the EPA, the majority of that of the food grade ferrous sulfate is coming from steel pickling. Steel pickling is a process where a steel mill will use their used up steel or scrap irons. They will dip it into a sulfuric acid bath. That sulfuric acid bath will strip all there's something called mill scale that's on steel mill scales and other rust and other contaminants, other metals in there too, other oils and other things in there, whatever might be on there. So this gets stripped into this sulfuric acid bath. Now the iron, so like rust is iron oxide, but like rust and mill scale is a version of iron oxide as well. The iron in there now will react with the sulfuric acid. So in the bath, it will start to crystallize and form a solid. So then that is filtered out of the sulfuric acid bath. It gets cleaned up, it gets crushed up, and that's what's put into the food. I mean, there's a couple more processes in there, but in general, that is what is put into the food.
So
And
we're
just looking
putting
at that
waste product from steel production
is
that's further treated into the food.
Yeah.
yes.
So talking about how you said to like stick close to like the source of where
Right.
it comes from, right? And the thing is like, you know, people are like not questioning that because you can have organic food, right? And all these things that like that trigger this like, oh, this is good food. And or like it's a natural supplement, iron. We need iron. And people are not questioning, but like where is this iron coming from? Is it natural iron, you know?
Yeah, well, if actually organic food, for example, organic foods from the USDA, they're allowed certain non-organic additives. They are allowed certain ones, and this type of iron is on there, even though it's the furthest thing you could get from organic, you know. But that could be added in something that would still be labeled as organic. Um, So, okay, so that is one type of iron. And obviously, just on the surface, like if you just think about it, like, okay, there's no way that this could be good for you. You know, there's just no way. I mean, there's no way somebody could think that. I mean, maybe some people do, but and then the other one that you'll see in foods is called reduced iron. So reduced iron is basically reduced iron. The first time I saw it, I was like, does this mean they put like less iron in something? Like, but no, it doesn't mean that at all. What it means is that it's been reduced down to this like elemental iron, which is literally just a straight up iron, like straight iron. So they reduce it down and then they just put it into a fine powder and then they put that in the food. And most of that also is gotten from recycled metals as well. Kind of crazy. And even I'm not that I would ever be okay with mining for it either, because it's still not coming from like an organic source, like from plant or animal foods, you know. But mining for it costs like 3 to 4 times more. So yes, they're always going to want to go towards getting byproducts of like steel mills and recycled metals because that will be so much cheaper.
Yeah, it's sitting over there. Let's go grab it and throw it in the
And not
food,
to
right?
mention, it's like an extra source of profit for these companies. Like, oh, well, we got this crap sitting here. Let's just put this in our food, you know? Um, and so then this comes down to, oh, and also like just, you know, like when you look at a package and you look at a packaged food, they have to list it under ingredients if it's added, like a synthetic one is added. So it will either list as just saying iron or reduced iron or ferrous sulfate, but it could just say just iron. Or if like something has iron in it, and let's say it's like flour, it could say enriched flour on that under ingredients, and it doesn't necessarily have to list that iron is in there. It could just say enriched flour, and that synthetic iron would be in there because that's considered like a standard practice. So they don't have to necessarily list that iron as part of that. So just so people know that could still be in there. So, but let me go to the differences because this is why it's really critical for people to know the differences in this. So when you get it from an animal source, that iron always has something called a heme ring around it. So this will stay attached around this iron atom. And when you eat food, it'll go in. And if it does, so okay, so sorry, backtrack just a second. But like most of the iron that we eat, most of it does not get absorbed. So it has to go through the rest of your intestines and out of your colon. So that's for the majority, probably 75 to 85% of it. That's how it's going to happen.
Even the iron that comes from food sources.
Yes,
Okay.
very little gets
Because we're not
absorbed.
meant to have a lot of iron, which I'm sure he'll go into.
Yeah,
We're not-
well,
we can't excrete
you'll
it.
see in nature that there's not a lot of iron in foods, and there's a reason for it. It's because we don't need a lot of iron. We actually recycle 24 of the 25 milligrams of iron that we need. So we actually only need to absorb, in general, usually I would say 1 to 2 milligrams of iron is what you need absorbed per day. So, um, going back then, so from an animal source, it will have this heme ring around it. So if it doesn't get absorbed, it will be able to travel with this ring around it all the way through your intestines and out. And from a plant source, it's attached to chelators. A chelator is something that just binds to metals to basically keep them bound safely. And so plants are always their iron is always binded to these chelators. So phytates, polyphenols, these are some examples. Maybe some people have heard of those. And they stay bound. So what happens is that if it doesn't get absorbed, those stay really tightly bound and it goes through you and goes out. Now, these other irons, they're not coming from these sources. They don't have those protections. So what happens is if they don't get absorbed, they are floating as free iron in your body.
Mm.
Free iron is picked up by bad bacteria. So good bacteria is very indifferent about getting iron. Bad bacteria needs it to thrive. So they see it, they're like, "Oh my God, yes, like let's scoop this up." And now they will start to thrive. And so that imbalance will happen pretty quickly. And that's one major thing. Obviously, the imbalance of that as it keeps growing will obviously lead to a lot of gut issues, leaky gut, so many things. The other issue is that that free iron, it reacts with hydrogen peroxide, and hydrogen peroxide is a normal byproduct of cells. So they will emit hydrogen peroxide inside and outside of cells. When that free iron comes in contact with hydrogen peroxide, it creates a free radical called a hydroxyl radical. And those are known as the most, or one of the most damaging in nature. So they will mutate DNA. So these radicals, so they are starving, they're starving to steal an electron. And so what happens is they will end up, what happens is they'll, whatever they come in contact with right away, they will damage. So if it's a cell, they will damage the cell walls. If it's inside the cell, it could mutate the DNA. So you'll get mutated DNA, cell wall destruction, and cell death from these things. And yeah, and the whole thing is your body. So this is the part is as you're like consuming this iron that's imbalancing your gut and causing this damage, you will start to get inflammation. You will start to get inflammation in here. And when you have inflammation, your tissues release even more hydrogen peroxide. So
Oh,
as you're doing that and still continuing to feed iron, you are causing a lot of destruction. And so I'm just going to try to bring it all, try to make it all in understandable form. But what ends up happening is when you start, as you keep causing more and more damage, and you start to get inflammation, once you get inflammation or start to get it, your body will start to block the absorption of your iron. And they do that, and that's because bad bacteria, different viruses, inflammation, iron will make it worse. Cancers, for example, like cancer cells use 5 times the amount of iron that like a normal cell would. And what happens is that your body knows that your immune system is activated, you have this inflammation, so they will start to block your iron. And iron, if you're not familiar, is what's used is needed for our hemoglobin, which is needed to get oxygen. So the iron actually hooks onto oxygen molecules while it's in this hemoglobin, and that's taken, everywhere else in the body. So very important. So iron is very important, but your body will start to block it. So people will become anemic where they will start to have, as your hemoglobin goes down, you will start to become tired, and as it just keeps lowering because you're having less oxygen, you will start to get more and more fatigued. However, if you could see from this process, it wasn't the fact that you didn't get enough iron. The problem is you were having inflammation, and that's why your body is blocking the iron, not because you need more iron. And what ends up happening is that doctors are looking just at like hemoglobin often, or other tests, which we could get into as well, which are also like completely bogus. But what happens is that when they look at hemoglobin, they see it low. They're like, oh, you need to take iron. So you are feeding and they'll do synthetic irons. And like the over-the-counter ones are 65 milligrams of iron, so even way
oh,
higher,
good Lord.
So you are blasting. So like you're anemic. Okay, you start taking down these supplements, 65 milligrams of iron, and and you have this inflammation, and you have more hydrogen peroxide being released. You are flooding it with even more synthetic iron. You are exponentiating this damage that's going on. And so this is just a huge part of confusion, is that the reason people are becoming anemic is not because of iron. They're not iron deficient or iron deficient anemia. They're having inflammation. That inflammation, iron is one part of it. And blasting synthetic irons at a time when somebody is anemic, but not from iron deficiency, from inflammation, you're going to cause a lot more damage.
Can I just
Oh,
say,
yeah.
we live in the era of inflammation because stress is a huge contributor to a state of inflammation, right? Eating processed foods that your body doesn't recognize sets sets it off with inflammation. That's your body's defense mechanism. So anything that you're doing against your body, really inflammation is often like a protective mechanism, but chronically, when you start living in chronic levels of stress, chronically consuming crap food, chronically not moving your body, you're going to have that inflammation become chronic and it becomes damaging. And so you can see how most people's bodies are probably actually starting to block iron absorption. And so they're being falsely diagnosed with too little iron consumption, but it's really, we got to teach them how to get rid of their inflammation.
Yeah, and then obviously the inflammation is going to happen from a number of things: processed foods, stress, things like that. So a lot of it. But what's happening is, so when you start getting the inflammation, that you'll see that as it goes chronically, what happens is it eventually will present with a disease. So depending on your genetic predispositions, then you will start getting all different types of diseases. And blasting with iron will end up accelerating this process. And there was some interesting studies that actually, like, atherosclerosis, if you're familiar, like, the arteries, and they usually blame cholesterol is usually blamed for this. That, like, oh, your cholesterol is too high. But what they've seen is that these arteries are actually becoming very damaged, and then so cholesterol is building up, but they've been damaged by something else. And there was a study that showed that the that word is so hard for me to say, atherosclerotic tissue had 17 times the amount of iron in it than healthy tissue.
Wow.
So and even like diabetes, type 2 diabetes, studies show that there's a lot more accumulation of iron in the pancreas in type 2 diabetics than healthy pancreas.
Man, that's wild. So do you already offer this course on educating?
Yes, that was just the most recent thing that we just completed. So yes, that's on our website. So it comes with like recommendations and other things as well, and we're also fairly accessible. But yes, that was the latest thing, and fertility is what we're working on now.
A new course for about fertility?
Yes.
Yeah. Talk about that.
Yeah, well, no doubt our society is really struggling with fertility at this moment. There's so many factors that can go into it, but I think at the end of the day, it goes down to just the basics of any kind of dis-ease, right? Because infertility would be considered a dis-ease. Um, and that goes back to like your body is just not being nourished in a way where it can thrive enough to have a baby, because we all expect to just be able to, get to that point and be able to have a baby. But really, your body, if it's barely sustaining you and it's working on overtime to keep you healthy and balanced, based on all the different poor choices that we make in modern day times that don't serve us, the last thing your body's going to be thinking about is to be conceiving a child. Like it needs to know that you're going to be in a place where you can nourish and have that child. So it just goes back down to nourishment. And so we were originally going to kind of interweave it with our pregnancy course, because we always say that the best way to get pregnant is to live like you already are. But then we decided to just, honor fertility in itself and just kind of take women through, women and men. This is a male and female issue here. But take them through all the different common reasons, common diagnoses, and break down how those diagnoses come about. Like different things like PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, for example, is very common in women, highly linked to insulin resistance, high levels of estrogen, high levels of stress. So things that you can actually tangibly change in your life, take control over, and reverse these concerns that are leading to infertility. So we decided to make that separate course for all of our families that are struggling with that right now.
Yeah, and I like to make this a plant comparison, because like in nature, if you have a plant, and I don't know if you've ever gardened before, but we had to go through some growing pains because we just learned how to garden, because we made our own garden and stuff, and we realized with plants, if you don't have good soil, you'll see that the plant will grow, and a young plant, like a young human, they will appear healthy. Um, and you'll see though, as if you have unhealthy soil, the plant will still grow because its main concern is for it to grow, but you'll see that it will not bear fruit compared to that healthy soil one, which will bear a bunch of healthy fruit. The other one will bear no fruit or really crappy fruit, and ones that won't really grow, and it'll be very, very poor quality. And like some people I've heard the comparison where people are like, like, oh, well, you see crackheads getting pregnant, and like, okay, they're not. And so they think like, oh, it should be easy. But like, okay, first of all, they're not seeing that like, okay, for every one, that happens, it's much less common than still
Yes.
even a normal person. But you're just taking that example and like, oh, so they're getting pregnant, but also that if they're not nourishing like that, unfortunately, that the child will also suffer, just like in nature, a plant, it will focus on itself growing. But if it doesn't have good soil, the fruit will either not bear hardly at all, or it will be extremely crappy and never grow
Yep.
really big. And it's the same with like pregnancy. The best way is that if you are living like you're pregnant, then your body actually knows that you can bear a child now, and then you are much more likely to be fertile at that point.
We all have that tendency, I think, as women, and this is kind of the way that we've been conditioned in our culture, and the expectations around pregnancy and such. But it's kind of like, we know the things that we're doing that aren't serving our health, but we're like still like, thinking that we deserve this baby. And it's always this kind of like, oh yeah, when I get pregnant, I'll stop. Yeah, I'll stop, of course, because it's bad for the baby. Well, if it's bad for the baby, it's really bad for your reproductive system as well, and the ovaries, and for the males, your sperm, for the things that actually come together and build and create that baby. So it's one and the same. So just I would really highly recommend to those families that are struggling, kind of evaluate different changes that you can make in your lifestyle now, and don't put them off. And even for the ones that aren't struggling, don't put it off to like when the baby comes, because it starts at conception.
For sure. Yeah. It's very different. So my wife and I, our oldest son is 31 now. And so it's been a while for us. However, just the whole mentality around pregnancy and reproduction is very different now. There's a lot of people that there's a lot that like I've read a lot of studies that younger people are having a lot less sex now than like my generation had. And for what it's worth, I'm a huge advocate of a very healthy sex life within a committed relationship.
Totally.
I'm not a big fan of promiscuous stuff just for a variety of reasons. I don't think I'm wrong. I'm not judging anybody, but catting around, and this goes both ways. I don't understand why this is. We'll look down. Society will look down its nose at a promiscuous woman, but not a promiscuous man. I think they're both wrong. I think they're both absolutely wrong, and they're not going to wind up in a good spot until they change and learn what life is truly about. But with that said, once you find that committed person, your life is so much better when you're having a regular sex life and you have a family. Like it just gets way better when you do that. And um, why would you not set yourself up so that when you chose to do that, you were ready to do it? And that's what you guys are doing, right? I mean, set yourself up for success. Why would you not want to make it as easy as possible on yourself?
Absolutely. Yeah. And then like just like the health of your baby, right? We all want our future generations to be better than us in every kind of way, right? We love our babies. We want them to thrive. And so yeah, doing that before they come into the world is a really great kickstart to their health. We mentioned acid suppressors at the beginning when I was talking about my heartburn, but heartburn is a huge concern in our modern day society. And so most people maintain themselves on acid suppressors. And one of the most common ones usually are like Prilosec, Nexium, right? The proton pump
Pepsid,
Pepsid,
yeah.
the proton pump inhibitors, I would say, are probably
Yeah,
more
yeah.
common
Mhm.
or deemed to be like the most effective, most powerful. However, they also come with some of the most craziest side effects. Like you're not supposed to be using them for longer than 3 months. And that's even per the manufacturer. But you will see that people will continue on them for years and years and years, despite the, big risk to your gut, despite the huge cardiovascular risk of the heart attack risk. And the crazy thing is that your body is so smart and it always seeks balance. And so the reason why people can't get off of them is because they keep your body keeps kicking up the acid as you're suppressing it. Your body keeps kicking it up, not because it hates you, but because with low acid you are asking to have really, really bad gut infections, and you're asking for gut imbalance there, and so your body's trying to save you. It's not working against you, it's working with you. And so I'm getting so sidetracked now, but probiotics, this is where they come in and stuff. But anyways, what I was trying to say is, with everybody being maintained on these medications more and more commonly at young ages, I was 16 when I started experiencing it, right? There is huge issues linked with the man and the woman. So both parents conceiving a child while on Prilosec has been linked to first of all, a huge gut imbalance, because your state of your gut gets transferred to your baby. So you're already transferring a really bad balance of bacteria to them. And was it developmental disorders?
I believe so. Shoot, I can't remember.
Gosh, I can't remember either.
Remember.
But
there's they want you to be off in at least a month before conceiving or something like that.
Conceiving, not like when you find out you're pregnant, but before even conceiving, before the sperm meets the egg, because these drugs have such a critical impact on the overall state of your health and will in turn have an impact on the sperm and the egg and the baby. So.
Which, like, James, that's what you were talking about, like the healthy, the seemingly healthy plant that doesn't produce fruit down the road, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because everything when it's young will appear for the most, not all of it. I guess you could be in really bad shape and not, but like most adults, young adults will seemingly look healthy. But that doesn't mean they have a bunch of things, inflammation, other things going on, and like a plant, like it's you're gonna see even in bad soil, you're gonna see it start to grow and be like, oh, this looks great, but you're gonna see it as it keeps going and going. You're like, oh wait, this is not going so good.
Yeah.
This is all like a topic of hope. I just want to say, because a lot of people that are trying to get pregnant are really, really discouraged, and they're like, look at me. I'm at that age. I have my partner. I have my job. I have my life. I'm healthy. Look at me. I live life every day. I'm doing okay. Why would I not be able to have a baby? And they get that diagnosis, that label put on them of you're infertile. And they really take that in and they think that they're damaged and there's no hope. And I mean, one way to really make sure that you can't, heal yourself and rebalance is to lose hope and to think that you are that label forever. And so I just want to encourage people that there's so much that can be done. Our course is titled Infertile to I'm Fertile, because infertility is not like a lifelong diagnosis, and doesn't have to be your forever state for the majority of people. There's going to be other circumstances, of course, but those are not going to be the majority of why we're struggling with infertility. So I just want to say that even though you seem to think that you're fine and you should be having a baby, there's so much that's underneath all of it that can be worked on with the right practitioners, with the right people in healthcare that can lead you down a positive path of changing your diet, your lifestyle, all of those little things that go into your well-being and ultimately help you be fertile.
And when do you think that course will be available to the public?
Ooh,
Oh, wow, that's a good question. Because we have
Put
a
the
lot
pressure
going
on you now.
we're also currently working on a live a live event for our pregnancy course. So that's kind of our priority at the moment, but we're working on it. I would say 5-6 months.
It really depends.
Can I say it?
Could be,
said it.
could be sooner. I think we want to do a live course for pregnancy, and so that's what we're developing right now. So that's our immediate priority. But it may be sooner. It really depends. There's a lot going on right now, so it depends. Time may free up, and we maybe just boom, just could knock it out quickly. So we'll see.
Sure. Yeah, and I get it. The world's an imperfect place. Um, I want to talk a little about gut health because we've referenced that a couple times without talking about it much. I think it's such an important thing. So when we talk about gut health, I don't think most people understand exactly how their gut works. Kind of walk us through what you mean when you say gut health. What are you talking about?
So gut health, I don't think that we need to think of it in any kind of complicated form. I think it's overcomplicated the way it's usually explained to us.
Mm,
But you could just think of it as this center right here where you ingest food, and it is the place that carries so many bacteria that are so important to helping you process all that food. These bacteria in your gut also are very responsible for your mental health, right? We've been saying now for many years in Western health that your gut is your second brain because all of your happy chemicals are made there. Your immune system begins with a strong gut. And so a big part of your gut is those healthy bacteria. That's why it's so important to work with them. And we have a symbiotic relationship. So that's one of the reasons why it's important to eat healthy. These bacteria are natural organic matter like we are, and they require good food choices. They require healthy organic matter, right? Not least processed, least packaged to thrive. And when we keep them happy, they keep our gut very happy. So in your gut is the place where you metabolize and you transform all the food that you put into your mouth into usable fuel. I think that's kind of the main point. It is the place where all of your fuel is obtained. And so depending on what you put into your mouth, your gut is either going to be able to do that, and if you're putting in good quality food, or it's going to be struggling and it's going to be under stress, and you're going to be killing that good bacteria, and you're going to be compromising the gut lining, which leads to conditions like leaky gut syndrome. It's becoming a very common buzzword. Um, and then, of course, your gut becomes less and less functional, has lower and lower integrity, and is not able to transform your food as well, right? It's not able to stay in balance with that good bacteria, and you're not able to fuel the rest of your body. And I just want to remind people that that is the start of fueling every single cell of your body, like every single cell of every single organ, every single tissue. And so it's really important to keep that gut in a really healthy, balanced place if you want to avoid disease. That's like I would say, preventative care 101 right there. Because if you don't take care of your tummy, which we can call it a tummy, we can call it whatever works. If you don't take care of your tummy, it's not going to fuel all of your body, and it's going to lead to a lot of metabolic dysfunction, which is those common issues we're seeing in modern day times, and different degenerative disorders, depending on your predisposition. But it is the start of all of your health.
mm, yeah, well said. That's a great recap of that. So on your website, you've got two, so instead of me doing that, talk about what's available for people if they want to look at your business, work with your business, or work with you two. What are the various ways that people can interact with your business and the two of you?
Well, on our website, well, first of all, our emails.
Yeah, mine
Sylvia,
is Sylvia, Sylvia, at a teaspoonofwisdom.com. I'm very accessible, both for actual personalized consultations, or if you do have questions. I am a pharmacist at the end of the day, and I'm so happy to share my wisdom with people. I'm here to serve. So
yes, and mine is James at a teaspoon of wisdom as well, .com. And so we also have two courses. We have two courses that are ready on our website. They are self-paced online courses. So that would be our pregnancy course called Wholesome Pregnancy, the Art and Science of Nourishing Mama and Baby, and the Iron course, which is called Iron E. And yes, that is recently available. And then it will say under construction is our fertility course. And we also have a form on there to ask do we still have the ask a pharmacist, right? Okay.
Oh, that's on our Health
Oh,
Way
that's
Aware.
okay, never mind. That's on our other site. Okay.
Just look in the form with anything that you need. And so, like I said, we're accessible, so just reach out to
And
us.
we'll put the website and both emails down in the show notes so
Okay,
that if
sounds
you
good.
guys want to go to the website, go down the show notes, click the link. If you want to email either doctor, you can email them directly from the show notes. Just click the link, it'll take you right to it. So definitely want to make that available. The live show, or sorry, not show, the live course that you're talking about as it relates to pregnancy. When do you think that'll be ready, or when are you going to be looking for people to sign up for that?
We're aiming probably for like April, we were saying, right?
Yeah.
Aiming for April, and we'll definitely have information on our website about that.
Yeah, because the plan is we're going to have it's going to be a live course where it'll be remote through we're not sure if it's going to be through like a Google Meets or a Zoom or whatever, but
Sure.
we're also going to offer it at a physical location as well, whoever would actually want to even be at a physical location as well.
So yeah, wherever you are in the world, you can join.
That'll be cool.
Mhm.
Very cool.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it.
Yeah. So you got all these options. They're going to be down in the show notes. I always do this towards the end of my conversations because I feel like I ask a lot of questions. We cover a lot of territory. We have awesome guests on that know so much. I don't want to, excuse me, I don't want to miss anything because I didn't ask the right questions or I didn't bring up the right topic. So, is there anything that I haven't asked you, or is there anything you feel strongly that you want to talk about that we have not talked about yet that you want to make sure we get in front of the audience while we're together?
Well, I told you that we were very busy and dealing with a lot of things. I actually have a really cool story about my former cat. So,
This is big because one of our plans are actually to get into the pet world
oh
because
yeah, sorry.
they are very much the different diseases that are plaguing our pets right now are becoming like just it's becoming wild, and they're very much mirroring our diseases. And they have to do with diet and lifestyle of our pets. So
Yeah, so we actually have a little board. So it's on the radar, but we haven't like put any worry about. But we also feel that really strongly about pets, as pets' health has also really started to decline a lot. But anyway, so this cat of mine, Sylvia, coming into our relationship, Sylvia had 3 cats and a dog, and I had 1 cat that I lived with for years. And combining them wasn't so easy. We didn't know how to do it or anything, and maybe we messed it up. I don't know. A couple cats fighting. One of her cats she adopted away, and then my cat went to my dad's cousin, and this was 3.5 years ago. And just recently, she was contacting us because he was not doing well. He was very sick, and she was wondering if she should put him down. Literally just laying in his kitty litter, not moving, not eating, and this was very difficult for me to hear. Um, and so what happened is she did get some blood work, maybe like 10 days before this and 2 months before that. And his red blood cell numbers and hemoglobin were going down.
it's so crazy at this time, right?
No kidding.
We're like, we know what to do.
So they were going down and down and down. And so we asked her, like, well, I was like, no, like absolutely don't put him down, like can you drop him off at the VCA hospital, the closest one that we could find, and then if we can also take him back in. And so the hospital there, they did blood work, and they gave him 2 blood transfusions. And so like just his red blood cell percentage was at 13%, which is like critically low for a cat. Normal is around 30%.
Oh my goodness.
And it was extremely low, hence why he was extremely lethargic. Um, after the second transfusion, that first day after it, or that first right after the test, right after that, it only went up to 17% after two transfusions. And
Mm.
then the next morning, so he stayed overnight one night. The next morning, he tested at 16%. So it's still going back down right away. We looked at the blood work, me and Sylvia, and so we actually exactly what we thought it was, which was okay, go ahead.
Well, and they diagnosed him with, they weren't sure. They were
Okay.
like, "Does he
Oh,
have
initially that was,
symptoms?"
yeah, okay.
Doing good.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So initially they said, oh, maybe it's a cancer that he has. Eventually, we talked with the last doctor I talked with there, we both agreed that it was an autoimmune, it's something called immune mediated hemolytic anemia. So that is the immune system is destroying the red blood cells.
Okay. Yep.
And so it is attacking the red blood cells. And so they put him on a steroid. So he was on a steroid for just one day because we took him out the next evening. We picked him up. And then they did, I think, maybe just one dose of an immune modulator called cyclosporin. They put him on an antibiotic, which, they just add antibiotics to everybody just in case, even though the test for parasites already tested negative, and so it was like clear that this was the issue, and they still did it. But so they gave us all these medicines on the way out, and then it's rare that you get like a critical situation like this in your life where you actually test everything that we've already known about health and everything. And so it's a scary situation, like he is dying. Everywhere you look, if you look on the internet, not treating him with this condition, this type of autoimmune condition, not treating him with steroids and immune modulators is almost certain death.
Mm.
That is literally what it will tell you everywhere. We decided to just take him off everything. We didn't give him any doses of the steroids.
We keep saying your gut health is the most important. That is where
Right.
your immune system starts. And we knew, and based on our conversations with the lady that had him, we knew that his gut health was compromised. Like we were very clear on that. And so we knew what to do.
And so like going to it, and she wasn't like giving him necessarily like some cheap cat foods, like whatever would be considered like better brands, was giving them that like wet and dry food versions of those, but like a better brand,
For the people
common
get
pet foods, it wouldn't be the stuff that we would give. But she, was doing the best that she knew. She was giving him like, foods, and she had previous cats before and stuff like that. But um so and she didn't give him any like vaccines or like flea medicines in case people were like wondering like did that mess him up. Like she didn't give him any of those either. It was just his diet changed. 3.5 years he was gaining some weight, I saw when she sent me pictures, but he was in a critical situation. We took him off everything, and then we just gave him, and Sylvia also has like with her knowledge with, I guess, like the difference in like knowledge of like food stuff is like there are different foods that are going to be heating, cooling, ones that are easier on the digestion versus harder. And so we went with what Sylvia would believe would be easier on his system. And so we did this. We saw him starting to get stronger. When he first got to our house that day, he couldn't jump on a shelf. This guy was like an insane jumper before that. And
Hmm.
he couldn't just jump on this clothing shelf. I saw him try twice, like a couple feet short, just bouncing off the shelf. I was like, oh my God. I was like, this is sad. And then I saw him even lay that first evening, he was laying in the litter. I was like, oh my God. And after 9 days, we see him. He's starting to move around. He's starting to purr. He's starting to get stronger. And we took him to get blood work, and his numbers from that 16% went all the way up to 28%.
Wow.
So just below normal after 9 days. And his hemoglobin normal for a cat is around 10. He was at 3.9. It went up to 8 point something as well, heading in the right direction. And then we did one more appointment, which was just yesterday, 2 weeks later now. This is 2 weeks after that last appointment. We got blood work again. And and on that last visit after 9 days, his platelets were still really low. So that was like still a concern because that was still really low. Now, 2 weeks after that, all his numbers, so that we get an email from the doctor, there's no sign of anemia anymore. all his numbers are normal. His platelets also went back to normal, and everything is perfectly normal now. And this was all within 23 days between that time and that time. Completely healed. We gave him no doses of the steroids, antibiotics, or nothing. And literally everywhere you would search, it will tell you is almost certain death without treatment of steroids.
And all you did was took him off and fix his gut health.
Yeah, exactly. And it was, it's so curious to me, the whole, because I understand, I'm very clear on the place for prednisone, but it does become a little bit murky when we start using it in people with autoimmune conditions. And if we have any desire to heal them and reverse the autoimmune condition, because for a person that has an autoimmune issue, their immune system is on like hyper overdrive, right? And that's why the prednisone is put there to stop the immune system. But the thing is, like, how can you heal an immune system when you're consistently putting a drug in there to knock it down? How are you supposed to get that immune system to be healthily, balanced and to fix it? It's very contradictory. It's a very delicate balance. I'm not saying there's never a time for the prednisone, at least temporarily, but it's a very interesting thing, and that's why we're kind of like, we know we want to do that, but we also were very certain about the gut health, and how to approach that. But I guess the point is, like, just like everything we're saying about humans, we need to start applying that to our lovely pets, because once again, cancer, anemia, just like with us, look at that, right? Just all these different conditions are coming up with them, and they are organic, natural creatures like us, just like the plant, the animals, us. We all mirror each other. We all require the same basic needs, and that's organic material, good fuel.
And probably with him, is what we suspected, is he probably developed inflammation from that food, and then chronic inflammation can easily lead to autoimmune conditions. So that's already known. So and so that's likely the path it took. But I want to say that I would never tell somebody, without knowing their situation, they should just get steroids. Because I would never just tell somebody, everybody's situation is so particular and different, and
just a story of hope.
But I just want to show that, like, if you understand or could go to people that understand how to see the situation, there is hope that you don't need to be stuck on a lifetime of steroids. And that's what that situation would have been, is likely a lifetime of steroids and other immune system drugs for the cat. And probably going to lower his life expectancy, everything like that. But, we're in the business of healing, not of putting Band-Aids on. And, we had our time of actually something in our own life to actually, and it is scary when it's your own self or a family member. Like, it's scary because there's so much fear put out with everything related to healthcare and all these types of situations, like an autoimmune condition. There's so much fear put in there. So it is scary. It's scary to go against what all the healthcare and internet is telling you. So I would imagine, because it's been pounded one way, to go the other way, because then you feel like if you at least go the other way and it doesn't work out, well, I followed what they said. If you go the other way, there's that feeling like, oh, then I'm going to be responsible if something happens. But you don't take any accountability for just going with what they say. Although I kind of look at it now as maybe there should be accountability for just going along and not, like, coming up with your own intuition and figuring things out. But
yeah, like we talked about earlier with my son, like I got eyes. I'm not a doctor and I didn't get all the training they got, but I got eyes and I could see what the path we were going down. I knew how it ended, and it was not good. But I wasn't just going to sit and watch the car drive off the cliff,
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, in your situation with your cat, yeah, you had it happened to fall in the sweet spot of what you have been working on for quite a while. So that was beneficial for sure. But
well, understanding just how the body works at that point, because after doing that whole iron course, it was so much easier to understand how chronic disease and everything, and iron and food, how they're all tied together and how they happen. It literally just opened my eyes to understand it, and then realizing that literally it happens so similarly in animals too. Like, it's all very, very similar, and so it was like right up my alley, right there, and yeah, it was just a beautiful story. And I just told Zoe, I was just like so ecstatic about this. Like, my cat is back and he's getting along with the other cats now. So it's like perfect.
I love it. Yeah. And that's like, it goes from theory to practice right in front of you,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Just for the audience, we'll have emails and the website down in the show notes. Before I let you go, I want to make at least one of you to commit to coming back on the podcast at some point in the future because more stuff for us to talk about. I would love to hear how your live pregnancy class goes. And this is an evolution that's going on right now. And when I have experts, I try to get as much as I can out of them. So hopefully I can get one or both of you to come back on somewhere down the road.
That
Yeah,
would be great. We
that
would love
sounds
that.
awesome. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you so much for this time because I think telling stories and experiences is so important. I think that we've diminished the importance of stories and experiences because we put so much emphasis on studies. And like I believe that stories are studies with the soul. And I feel like we hear the right stories at the right time from people. And it's kind of like a meant to be situation of how we can implement into our lives. So we're just so grateful that you can give us this platform of, so we can share and hopefully inspire anybody that's ready, right? You got to be ready. So
Yeah, well, appreciate you guys coming on and you hit it right on the head. You've got to be ready. You've got to take control of your situation. You got to open your mind and think if what you're doing, are you where you want to be? Then maybe you need to do something different. Why not look at something different? Why not educate yourself? Why not learn? You can do it, you can not do it, but aren't you better off for having the information? That's kind of the way we try to coach everybody. No one says you have to agree with it or practice it or anything, but I want to know as much as I can. I think I'm in a better spot. Then I got lots of things to draw from, and I can make the best decisions I'm capable of in whatever situation I find myself in. So,
yeah,
yeah.
run it through your own filter.
And by the way, best communicators are always storytellers. Like there's been study after study after study that shows the people that are best at communicating are the ones that are best at storytelling. Like it's
Awesome.
by far the best way to communicate.
Well,
So
this is really, really great.
Yeah.
yeah, had a great time. Really enjoyed it. We'll do both or explore the opportunities
Yeah.
for both, but we'll definitely have you guys back on in some version down the road. And I really appreciate you guys taking all the time with us tonight. It was super valuable.
Yeah,
Thank you.
awesome. Had a good time.
Yeah, awesome. Well, have a good dinner, guys. Enjoy your time.
Thank
All right,
you.
thank
Have a good
you.
weekend.
Okay,
See you later.
have a good night.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So there you go. What a great conversation with doctors Boblak. So loved how they talked about in detail what they saw in the corporate medical field, and then what that led them to do between the education they got in pharmacology, the education they got in kind of Eastern medicine, and how they've combined that. They're trying to help people around pregnancy, around infertility, around iron levels. Super, super good stuff. So really appreciated them coming on and doing that. We will have them back on either on a live stream or on another episode in the future because we have lots of stuff to talk about. We did not talk about vaccines in any great length, and we didn't talk nearly as much about how food works in as much length as I would like to. So we'll bring them back on. Really appreciate them coming on. They did a great job. And so they are on the follow-up list for sure. Thank you, doctors, very much. Great job. I hope your dinner after our episode went well. James puts it up over here every day. Head over to our website, saltygingertalk.com. All of our podcast episodes are available there. Links to our social media accounts are available there. We publish a newsletter every weekday you can subscribe to on our website. Make sure you like, share, comment, subscribe to our podcast, whatever platform you consume it on. We are going to keep having awesome guests like doctors Sylvia and James Boblak on. We're going to do episodes that give you life skills you need to build the life that you want. It's all awesome stuff, super valuable. It's going to help you get to where you want to be. So make sure that you catch our next episode. We'll see you there.